What's going on, you guys? TBR here, back yet again with another King of Fighters All-Star video, and in today's video we are going to be revisiting Deimos base because now that I've had a couple of days to play around with this thing, as you guys can tell on screen, I've actually finished it up already. I wanted to go ahead and give you guys just some general overall observations, tips, tricks, and just some thoughts. I have thoughts on this thing, so we're just going to go ahead and jump right into it. But before we go ahead and get into all of that and more, make sure if you guys haven't already done so, you smash that like button and subscribe, and let's talk about it. So when it comes to Deimos base, this is basically what, the third iteration of this thing at this point, and I'm happy to report that it is well, it's really easy. I'm not gonna lie to you guys, this thing is really not anywhere near as difficult as it was the first couple of times, especially that second time around whenever they changed things around on us. So luckily for all of you out there who are going to be budget players, kind of intermediate players, I would say this is probably still going to be a little too difficult for beginners. However, it depends on how beginner you are, right? So we'll kind of talk about that too. But really the biggest thing that I noticed playing this, and I've cleared all 50 stages of this thing. I did it all pretty much with Cronin. Actually, you guys will notice, and I'll even try to play the clip here, but my Cronin didn't even really take any damage until the final stage, and I've played this final stage a couple times with him, just playing around, just to kind of get a general overall feel and test a few things. So yeah, Cronin just powered through this thing. So if you guys out there that are veterans or intermediates that have Cronin want my best advice, use Cronin and a healing striker like Athena, and you're probably just going to blaze through this. He is, like, in my opinion, the king of this mode right now. So that's just my opinion, though. I'm sure everybody's going to have a differing opinion on who's the best for this, but for me it's Cronin. But either way, I cleared this thing basically solo with Cronin, so really not any real difficulty here. The one thing I will say as far as what I noticed, I will say that the little spheres that pop up and go ahead and give you dot, which really are kind of the most annoying part of this entire game mode as far as the enemy types are concerned. Those things are kind of just more annoying and nuisances than anything, because if you hit them, you're in good shape, you aren't going to have to worry about it, and they do telegraph their moves, so you can kind of just dodge around them and kind of just hide on the other side of the stage if you need to wait for your cooldowns or whatever the case may be. So that's one thing. Those little spherical guys, those can be a little annoying. They're basically the new bugs. If you guys played the first couple of Deimos base versions, you'll know what I'm talking about. The bugs are still there, but they're just a shell of what they used to be, so no bug joke intended there. But beyond that, you know, really the bosses this time around, outside of a couple of them that kind of stuck out, like EX Angel, SS King, and then maybe the final boss, none of them were really anything that was overly difficult. I really just face tanked everything with Cronin, because once Cronin's got his awakening spam up, it's game over for anybody. So really, I didn't notice much of a challenge here that you're probably going to have much of a difficulty with. If you're a veteran or an intermediate player, you're probably going to be able to clear this very, very easily. There are new buff types as well. We talked about this briefly the other day, but you can kind of check them all out in here and kind of go through them. But really, the buff types are going to come down to what team you're using, what characters you're using. It doesn't really matter at that point. You pretty much just got to pick what works best for what you're doing. So I'm not going to go into these too much. For me, I kind of just focused on things that gave me heals and things that gave me my decrease of my cooldowns, and that was basically about it, or even full-on resets. So, you know, that was pretty much what I focused on. I didn't even really focus on damage as much, just because, again, I used Cronin and he was able to just pump out as much damage as I would possibly need without a dot, or without a buff rather, so it really didn't matter. So yeah, I mean, honestly, it wasn't all that difficult, and really there isn't a whole lot here that you're going to need to take into a lot of consideration if you fall into that category of being a veteran or an intermediate. It's really not that bad. But if you are a beginner, I do have a few things I want to go ahead and go over. So if you're a beginner player, I'm not going to get into, like, if I sat here and recommended all of these tier 1, these uber tier units to veterans and intermediates, they'd just be looking at me and going, well, I already know that. So I'm not going to bother telling you how good the Street Fighter characters are, how good Cronin is. You know, I've already told you how good Cronin is. Whoops. I guess I am telling you how good Cronin is. But beyond that, I did test several different characters just to mess around. And to be honest with you guys, there's a couple of things I would recommend. So, like, for instance, if you're somebody that's on a budget, characters that are going to have heals first and foremost, dot explosion, saves, so on and so forth, are going to be your best friends. However, I want to go ahead and point out a couple of characters for all of you, kind of, whether you're a brand new player or you're somebody that's more of a free-to-play that doesn't maybe have a lot of A5 units or whatever the case may be. I want to go ahead and recommend a quick group of characters to you. So these three characters right here are extremely strong for this as far as unified banner characters are concerned. Really, the big thing here is you're going to notice with these characters, they have things such as heals, they have things such as dot explosion with that 5.5 times, and in general, all three of them are going to be really good for this because the CP requirements are kind of a joke. Speaking of jokes, you took away my characters. I hate that it does that.
Quality of life update. Come on, Netmarble, get on it.
But irregardless, the CP requirements you can pretty much circumvent just like anything else in this game, just using dot explosion. So that's kind of sort of a good way to work around things like normal with a lot of these game modes that have these CP requirements that we can kind of just work around. So I really do think that these three characters are going to be, for you free-to-plays out there, honestly the best bet. You can even slap like Akane set on these three and go to town if you really want to. These characters also get to A7 because of their change-up kits, so you can technically buy yourself a little bit more CP doing that, building them up fully. But you don't, again, really need to worry about it because as long as you have that dot explosion and you have the heals and you add a healing striker onto all these characters, which healing strikers are a must. You definitely want to have healing strikers. Athena, as I've always told you guys, is obviously going to be the MVP here. I used her all the way through on all these characters that I tested out. And yeah, I mean, all of these characters here, if you're free to play, should end up being the ones you want to focus on. But beyond them, again, if you're somebody that is a veteran, I would just go ahead and use things like Street Fighter, Cronin, etc. They're really just going to be the best, especially Cronin. Now, one other thing that you're going to notice about this, and I do want to point something out as well here. So basically with this, one of the things that you're going to notice is I would recommend, honestly, because you are going to have PG gain issues in this mode at times, I would recommend either the quick mode or the max mode set. I think that this is actually one of the game modes they had in mind when they designed these. These here are really, really powerful for this. The main reason I say that is actually going to mainly be because if we take a look here, let's see, which one is it? Is it, I think it's this, let's see. Which one is it? Oh, come on. This one here. So this one here that gives you the 30% chance to charge 5 power slots upon landing inactive. Really strong here. I don't think I need to explain why it's so strong. So with this thing, it's really, really cool because if you take a look at this, you'll realize that basically what you can do is you'll go in and this will proc and you can basically wipe an entire wave of enemies off the map using just this when it procs. So basically, this is extremely strong for this, and I do recommend it very, very highly. However, if you do not have that one, since I know that one is now gone, another one that you could definitely take a look at here is going to be this set here. The reason for that is largely the same. So if we take a look here, go ahead and this one here, it's the second one on this one. So this one here also has that same effect. So honestly, you guys, this guy, the Akane sets of the world, which I know there's some people out there that don't really know what we're talking about when we call them things such as Akane set. So allow me to go ahead and give you a quick visual. So this is your Akane set for all of you wondering. So Akane set's really good. Beyond that, honestly, guys, this is something that is not really in need of like a guide or anything like that. This really isn't all that difficult. The biggest thing is those little spheres that are going to apply dots and stuns and so on and so forth. Avoid those at all costs. Stuns, by the way, are really good here as well, especially for the bosses. So if you have a character that has some form of CC, you're in good shape as well. So honestly, that is a really big plus for any of the characters you're picking also, but I digress. But yeah, besides the little spherical guys, the bosses can sometimes be a little bit of a pain in the butt, but they're not too bad. As long as they don't stun you, you can pretty much just wipe them off the board. And again, if you have a CC, which is really where that comes in handy, is against those bosses. super, super good. And yeah, I mean, I really don't see this as being anything that really is that big of a deal for most people. I've seen people actually clear this entire thing from stage 1 to stage 50 using just this unified version of Iori, or of Orochi. Iori, what? So, you know, beyond that, I don't think that there's really much more to add. I think that this is honestly just more easy content for most people. I know that there's going to be beginners out there that are going to hear that and they're going to be like, oh, it's not easy. Well, you're a beginner. Give it a month. just build up the next OP stupid character that comes out. You'll be in good shape probably. But really, I think that's about it, you guys. This isn't that big of a deal. It's honestly pretty much a cakewalk, and the rewards are extremely good. I'm really hoping that this is something that they do find a way to cycle in twice a month, which it does appear as if that's going to be the case for month to month, just based on the fact that we have 12, 13 days or whatever the case may be per season. But you never know if they're going to have a weird gap between seasons, or if they're even going to take it away for a while, or what they do at Netmarble with this kind of stuff. I don't know. It's weird, but honestly, guys, use your healing strikers, use your best overall characters that you got, and you should be in good shape. Again, the max mode, quick mode sets, Akane sets are really good for this. And yeah, I mean, the biggest thing is just avoid those spheres and try to avoid the stuns or the CCs from the bosses, and you're good. So anyway, you guys, that's pretty much just my observations and thoughts on this. I just kind of wanted to cover it a little bit because it did just drop, and I didn't want to do it on day 1 because I didn't have time to really mess with it all that much. But now that I've gone through it, I can pretty much tell this is going to be more easy content. So really not anything that's that big of a deal. And again, if you're looking for a really good budget team, just slap these 3 together, put some healing strikers down here for all of them, and you should be pretty good shape as long as you are dodging and avoiding things correctly. And I guess that's one other thing I can add, even though it's really not necessarily much more than just common sense. But if you find yourself stuck in a situation where your cooldowns are all up and you're waiting for all of your skills to come back, just dodge to the opposite end of the screen and just hide in a corner and move around until they come back. Just turtle it. There's no shame in that. No one's going to judge you, I promise. We've all had to do it here and there. It's really not that big of a deal, so that'll at least kind of save you from taking extra unneeded damage. I definitely would not try to get into any type of melee trades with any of these waves because, you know, you really do have to be wary of those little kind of dot sphere things because they will mess your ass up. But anyway, you guys, that is it for me. I hope you all found it informative. If you did, smash that like button and subscribe. And until the next one, I'll talk to you guys later. Peace.
Continue. Game over.